This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. You're welcome along now to the Maroon and White pod. So I'm joined by Salthill Knocknacarra coach James Mannion to look back first off in Salthill Knocknacarra's year, and then we'll take a quick look at Moycullen and Caltra, both beginning their Connacht Championship campaigns this weekend as well. James, obviously, I'm sure it's tough when you see Moycullen progressing on now to Connacht, but has the last 2 weeks given you time to maybe reflect on the year?
Yeah, look, it's always tough when you don't get over the line, but like I think the more time passes, it's a great healer. And I think the more you kind of think about it, the more positives come to the front, So like we would have had we had a great couple of years, getting out of Division 2, getting up into Division 1, playing at a higher standard, making a semi-final last year, get to a final this year. We've made a lot of progress. And I think we blooded an awful lot of young footballers this year. Like the likes of Mark Mannion, Derek Keneally, they got serious game time this year. We got lads in like Niall Hanaho and so on. We've created a really good squad depth there in Salthill, which is badly needed if you're going to go on and compete consistently with the likes of the Mike Cullens and the Kerr Finns and so on. But I think look at over the last couple of weeks, you can hide away, or you can look for the positives, and I think there's an awful lot more positives than there's been negatives.
It obviously hurt. The chances were there at the end to even force extra time or even potentially win it.
Yeah, and I think the modern game now, the new game, like they're always going to be tight. You're rarely seeing any game run away anymore, which is fantastic. From a neutral's point of view, it's unbelievable because no matter what's going on, it's exciting. Anybody can win the game. So I suppose when the game is like that, when you miss a goal chance, you miss a free, you miss a point chance, a missed kick out, those simple things, they can have big bearing. But I think that the overall thinking, from a coach's point of view is, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough at a high level to ensure that we're creating those opportunities, and are we taking them? So are we creating enough attacks? Are we creating enough shots in those attacks? And are we creating enough scores in those shots? And at the end of the day, if you're not doing those things, unfortunately, you're going to be on the wrong side of the fine margins, and that was the case for us a couple of weeks back.
Has it given you time to maybe appreciate the occasion, the game of football, and everything that we did have 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, like it was the occasion was massive. I think the Saturday night under lights for us from a semi final and final point of view, like they were great occasions. And sometimes when you're in the bubble, you mightn't take it all in, but like I think from talking to people and seeing, the highlight montages that Stream Sport put up online, like it was a sensational occasion. And it's great for the clubs and the parishes, and you're seeing tons of kids at the games, and it's fantastic. But I think for me, like I was back out the following Wednesday with the Sigerson and University of Galway, and like that for me got me grounded again and touching grass, and it kind of said, what, isn't it a great game that we're all involved in? And at the end of the day, if it wasn't something you enjoy doing, you wouldn't be doing it. So when you get to enjoy the big days like that under lights in Pure Stadium, there's an awful lot of good in the game.
With the journey you went on with Salthill Knocknacarra this year, can you look back with an enjoyment, or do you still sort of think of, I suppose, a couple of moments of regret?
No, you wouldn't look to regret at all. I think the overwhelming positivity out of a year is so much more than anything else. You're going train on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. You're not worrying about a result. You're looking forward to going down to the pitch, and you're looking forward to being around a squad of 30 odd lads and a management team that you're bouncing off well. So I think for me anyway, I wouldn't be involved in the game if it wasn't for the enjoyment of going down to the pitch 3 days a week or 4 days a week or whatever it happens to be. Because if that enjoyment isn't there, you'd be out the door fairly quick. You know, you wouldn't be putting so much time and effort into it when you're leaving work early or you're leaving family at home. So no, when I look back over, especially the last 2 years with Salt Hill, I'm looking back with great with a smile on my face, you know, thinking about those evenings in the prairie on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday mornings and bouncing off the lads and relationships made there with the players and with the rest of the management.
For yourself as a coach to work with Vinny and Sean Armstrong, Norman Costello, I imagine it's a great environment to be working in.
Oh, absolutely. And like it's for me the last 2 years, I've gotten so much out of it. Like every day, every year, you're learning. You're learning off players, you're learning off the rest of the management, you're learning from your own mistakes. Um, I was talking to Mickey Graham there the last day, and he was saying like this new game is great because we're all constantly learning. Um, so the last 2 years has been great. Like you get so much off the lads, and they were so welcoming and forthcoming with the knowledge that they have. Like they've done it at such a high level. For me, like I'm only 29. That was my second county final. You know, so for me to be learning of good people like that, and being able to do it on big days as well, and get to the latter stages of championships, you could ask for nothing more as a young coach.
I feel like I have to ask a question, James, but since the start of the championship, Salthill Knocknacarra's odds significantly went down. There was a lot obviously made of your intercounty players. It's obviously hard in one sense to avoid that, but what did you make as that was unfolding?
It surprised me a little bit, but it's amazing what the media can do, and you know when something gets enough traction online, you know, there's no end to it. For us, it didn't bother us. Like we didn't feel any additional pressure from it. Like I think as a group, the lads were brilliant in that they were very focused on the process and where they wanted to get Salt Hill and what we wanted to do as a group. Um, so yeah, like sometimes there can be a media circus around six players or odds going down and so on and so forth, but like it never once entered into our thought process. Like we wouldn't have been talking about a training or in meetings or anything like that, you know. Like the lads were always great. They knuckled down. It was all about the process and the hard work. So no, it never bothered us.
It was just, I think, fascinating in one sense how it got so much attention. But even I remember listening to Finian in the lead up to the final. I think it's three county titles Salthill Knocknacarra have ever won. 22 final. You're obviously in the 12 final. 12 was the last time Salthill Knocknacarra got their hands on Frank Fox. So when you consider things like that, it was crazy in one sense. But I suppose in one sense, when you look at all that, then that I suppose shows how far Salthill Knocknacarra have come this year.
Yeah, and like when I went in last year, we were Division Two. Like when I would have sat down with Finian, we would have spoken about staying up in Division Two and making sure we were safe there initially before we looked at anything else. But the most important thing for us last year was to get up to Division One. And luckily we did that. Like that was our first bit, Salt Hill's first bit of silverware since 2012, I do believe, at adult level. Um, and then you're playing Division One football for the first time since 2017, I think it was. So for us getting up there and exposing players to Division One teams and Division One gameplay was huge, and we got an awful lot out of that. So I think for us the progress that we made over the last couple of years has been huge, and I think we really wanted to make sure that at the beginning of every year that Salt Hill were a seeded team, and you weren't ending up in a group with Curfin or Moycullen or Tuam or having to work really 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 hard in a group stage. Where you could build nicely and hopefully get out.
You mentioned the words curve in there. The semi-final, obviously. 114 to 3 points up at half time, and you win the game 117 to 115. Just looking at that, could you make any sense of it? Because you're obviously feeling, I presume, as a management team and players, very good at half time, and then second half, you're sort of trying to figure out what just happened.
Yeah, I think that game is is a perfect example of the new game. With the new rules, like the middle third is so important now. Like it's so important. I think after that game, I talked to a few people who were looking at results up in Dublin that were similar teams 10 points ahead and getting caught, and games up in Armagh similarly where teams were massively ahead and they got caught. And the common denominator in all those games was the middle third. And winning the middle third. So sometimes it can nearly be easier to win opposition kickouts the way it is that you can, if it's hanging up there, you can go and attack it. And like obviously we really missed John Maher around the middle third for that second half, and they had brought on Kieran Brady, and Kieran Brady had a sensational performance. So like it really, really an awful lot of it came down to that middle third battle. And if you're winning the middle third battle, you have the momentum, and if you have the momentum, it's very, very, very hard to wrestle it back off somebody else.
How much of a setback was it to lose John? I know it was obviously massive to get a victory like that over Curfin in the championship. It had been quite a while, but just to lose John because he was obviously such a leader in that group.
Oh, huge loss, huge loss. Like John drives standards left, right, and centre. When he's on the pitch, he's given 100%, and even for those 2 weeks leading up into the county final, he was giving everything to the lads as well. Um, like he's a real leader on that middle third, and we really missed him. But like I think it really goes back to momentum, and like when you lose a strong character like that, it hurts a lot. It hurts your momentum as a team in the game and for the next 2 weeks as well. And you just have to try and get over it as best you can. Um, but like I think the most important thing out of that semi final was getting the win. And we would have been very happy with the way we kind of wrestled back momentum at the end, and got the score that we needed to get to make sure we got over the line. Like I think that was Salthill's third championship win over Curfin in 30 odd years. So for Salthill that was huge, and that's a huge mental thing for them as well. That hopefully now they'll be able to go and push on again.
12 months is obviously can be quite a difference in football. And Tube Stadium, obviously, Curfin went and bet you quite comfortably that day to turn the fortunes around in and beat them. Like it was obviously on the back of your minds because you probably felt yourselves, you probably just didn't show up that day for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think each lad would have had that in the back of their heads. Like we wouldn't have spoken about it. We wouldn't have gone into the dressing room screaming and shouting about it, and used it as massive motivation. But I think I think all the lads themselves knew, and they had it in the back of their head, and they wanted to right or wrong. Um, that alongside being process driven, and what we were going after from a KPI point of view. So, sometimes those things can help you an awful lot, or they can hinder you. Thankfully for us, over the 12 months, it helped us, and we got over the line.
Obviously, coming up short in the county final, does it have lads excited for next year, or is there still, I suppose, in the back of your minds, or how do you reflect on things now?
Um, Look, I suppose it's still very raw and it's still very fresh, So I think over the next few weeks or a couple of months or whatever, management will get together and kind of reevaluate, and have a chat and see where we're at, and the players will do the same. I'd really hope from a player point of view that that they'd be very hungry to go and push on again, because the talent is there, the attitude is there. Everything you want is there. So I really hope that they decide, let's go at it again, and let's push on, because you never know where you could end up with an attitude like that.
If I bring you to Mike Cullen, Why are they such an impressive team for you?
Geez, they're very impressive for so many reasons, but I think for me, they have a massive amount of experience. They've won Frank Fox 3 times in the last 6 years. They've been in five of the last six finals or whatever it is. Like you can't you can't buy experience like that. It's unbelievable, and when you're in the battleground and you're fighting and you need to get over a line, you can go back and fall back on that experience. And I think they're very good at realizing when they need to do that and then going and doing it. And they're well able to work their scores. They're well able to get the right men on the ball and isolate weaknesses in teams and so on. And you really get that from being so long on the road together and at the latter stages of championships. So for me, it's definitely their experience.
Is there an element now, I was referencing it throughout the year, that there's been a resilience and a character, particularly in their last two games against Doom Stars and yourselves, where they've come from behind, there's been big plays in big moments for them. But is there an element now that the shackles are going to come off as the Connacht Championship begins?
Yeah, and look at it. I hope so from a Galway point of view that when teams get into get into their provincials that they can open up a bit more. Like the Galway Championship's a very hard won championship, very hard one. I think Alan Kern said it on podcast here with you leading up into the county final that when Salthill got out of Galway, they could really throw the shackles off and go at it. And I think for the two teams that we have going into the Connacht Championship and Moycullen and Caltra, it's a good opportunity for both of them to throw the shackles off and see where they can go.
It was interesting. I was interviewing Clancy last week, and he referenced about 22 where Mike Cullen field they came close, but they sort of nearly feel like it was a missed opportunity. And it's interesting to hear that now. But now as they begin out against Shamrock Gales this weekend, as we mentioned, there's obviously huge experience though that they can draw, that they've already been through this campaign, that it's not a fresh new campaign that they've never experienced before.
Yeah, I think sometimes when a team wins a county title, and if they haven't done it in a long time or they haven't won an awful lot, and they get to the top of the mountain, it's very hard then to get yourself up for a provincial, and further on. I think for Mike Cullen now, like they've they've won their county titles, they've won a provincial. You know, they have a different mountain to go and climb now. And they should have a different mountain to go and climb. They shouldn't be happy where they're at. They should want to go on and push on. And I think they have the experience to do that. They definitely have the players to do that. And I think look at they have a very good setup there, management wise and coaching wise as well. I think they have everything that they want and they need to go on and push on. And I think it's a very good opportunity for them on Sunday to go and have a right crack at it and see where they can go.
Do you face Shamrock Gales with your time in Sligo?
God, I can't remember, so long ago now. But Shamrock Gaels, they've had a fantastic year this year. Like
Yeah,
they've I think that was their first county title now since '92. A
yeah.
33-year wait. So I'm looking at their team and it's a very strong team. Like you're looking at five or six county players there and like say of an Evan Lyons there, who's a serious county player. And like he's a stalwart for Sligo. You have a Connor Sheridan there, who would have been part of an under 20 panel in 23 when they got the All Ireland final. We were lucky enough to have him with the University of Galway Sigerson this year. Like they're a very strong team, and they've been building for years. They're a good while building. They're bringing young lads through, and they seem to have a very good age profile now. So for them, you wonder, like I said, sometimes you get to the top of the mountain and it's very hard to get yourself up for it. You wonder now, is that going to be the case for them, or is the strong contingent there, county players and the strong players they have saying, you know what, Sligo's hard won. let's see how far we can go here. We saw with Coolera last year where they went and won a Connacht title, so like they're definitely going to think that they can go and push on, because a 9 point win in a county final over provincial champions from last year is a huge positive for them going into it.
I think for Moycullen, it's a good reference point too, isn't it? Like everyone, I think, expected Kerfin to push on the last 2 years, but when it came to Connacht, obviously, look at Port Pierce's, you look at Bridget's, they bet Kerfin in the last 2 years. Everyone's automatically thinking Shamrock Gales, Leitrim Gales, that Moycullen are automatically going to get to a Connacht final.
Yeah, and people can think that, but it's an awful lot harder than that. And I think the Moycullen lads within the group will know that. Like Shamrock Gales, obviously very strong players that we've mentioned, but like Leitrim Gales are waiting in the long grass there as well. They've like a very strong panel. They've the Jones is brought in from Fermanagh. And obviously a bit of
Echo, I
a
coach too,
Galway
that knows a
interest,
lot.
yeah. So Leitrim Gales are going to be, throwing everything at it, and they have a nice break as well. So
Yeah.
they'll get their celebrations out of the way, and they'll knuckle back down. Like you can guarantee they're all going to be in Tubbercurry on Sunday watching this game. They're going to have their plan in place, and they're really going to go at it. So like to be fair, Moycullen are going to have to do it the hard way. They're going to have to get over Shamrock Gales. If they do that, they have to get over Leitrim Gales, who are going to be well set up for them. And then you're looking at, a very strong team on the other side as well, whether it's going to be Bridget's or Ballina or Shamrock Gales or not Shamrock Gales, but the Gales from London as well. So um, it's going to be a tough ask, but again, if there's any team that's set up well enough to do it, it's going to be Moycullen.
It's a bit of a challenge, do you feel, to go to Tubbercurry and a club pitch this weekend?
Yeah, like Tubbercurry's a tough pitch to go and play a championship match in. Now, I've gone up, I've watched Sligo championship games up there, and it's a tight ground. The stand is in on top of them. It's smaller than your intercounty ground. So it is going to be tough. Shamrock Gales will know the pitch inside and out. They'll have played their time and time again, so that'll give Shamrock Gales a little bit of a boost and a bit of confidence going into it. Um, but again, Moycullen have done it. They've gotten on the bus. They've travelled to grounds around the place, and it's they'll be looking forward to that battle, I'm sure.
It- just on that, obviously with Moycullen, this weekend now, obviously a big decision to make with Peter Cook again.
Huge, huge. Like he's made a huge impact the 2 days he's come on. Obviously he was instrumental in that winning that Tuam game in the semi final, and he obviously made a huge impact against us as well in the county final. But I think you look across the board on that Mike Cullen's team, and like they have an awful lot of lads that are playing sensational football. Like you have Niall Walsh there, who's injury free for the first time in a long time. Like he's been having a fantastic county championship. Desi's your top scorer there, 237, and that's 4 times in 6 years. He's been the top scorer in Galway Championship, So, like, you've all that going on up top, and then you have, your Sean Kelly's leading the line from the backs. He's moving brilliantly again. And like it's very hard to look at them and pick out a weakness. So I think whether they play Peter or start Peter or not, they're going to be finishing strong regardless. Whether he's going to be starting it or not, I don't know, but he's going to make an impact either way.
Uh, Just on one of the points you made there, Desi top scorer 4 years out of six. Is it a bit of a crying shame then that us as a county, haven't been able to fit him into the Galway senior football panel?
I look like I think so. Like, is he worth the place on a panel? Absolutely. Um, like he's been your top scorer 4 years out of six. He's been your best, probably your best forward in Galway over those few years. Like look at anybody that's scoring heavily at club championship level, I feel should be in and having a look. And that goes the same with Alan Naughton there with Caltra, like 2 years in a row. He's been top scorer in the intermediate championship. Like it's very hard to find free scoring forwards. So the more of those you can get, the better, especially with the new game where you're having more shots and more 1v1, scenarios and situations where you can go at. And I think that's really playing into Desi's hands this year. I think he's in the shape of his life. He's playing the football of his life. And I'd be very surprised if he wasn't getting a phone call at the end of this club championship.
Just with Sean Kelly as well, I hate to bring it back to the county final again, but I thought Sean Kelly's performance was probably back to a like fully fit Sean Kelly that we've seen previously in the county final.
Yeah, 100%. It was definitely the best I've seen him move in a long time. Unfortunately for us, but from a Galway point of view, it's great to see him moving again and moving like that. He's blistering pace that sometimes you wouldn't think is there, but when he turns it on, and he's very hard to catch. I think he's had awful run with injuries, and if he can stay fit and perform like he did that day for Galway, I think from a county point of view, we're going to be in a very, very good place.
It's a nice position too for Colin Clancy to be in because even against yourselves, they're able to bring Neil Mulcahy and Peter Cook into the equation, and now you have James McLaughlin and Conor Corcoran chomping at the bit as well.
Yeah, they've huge depth. They've developed huge depth. Obviously, they've had their injury troubles throughout the Galway Championship, but I suppose they got lads fit and they got lads back at the right time of the year. And when you're going into a provincial championship like they are now, you're going to need them, especially when the ground is getting harder and it takes more out of the legs. And in this new game as well, where you're covering more distance at a higher pace, you really need a bench. And I think they've developed that quite well. And I think what you're bringing on there is quality as well. You're not just bringing on bodies; you're bringing on really quality bodies.
What is it that stands out most? Like obviously in the old game, they had a system that they were very hard to break down, and I think they still are very impressive at the back. Like you look at Owen Kelly, did very well on Rob in the final at stages, but obviously had his hands full at other times. David Wynn obviously key in the half back line, but attack as well. They've obviously been able to bring Fionn and Fiacre back into it, and they've added to it this year. But what's the most impressive aspect that maybe Mike Cullen have developed for you?
I think they're very confident in what they do. Like they know what they're doing, and they're very confident. And I think they're very confident in their abilities, and they're confident in their teammates. So an awful lot of the time, like they're happy to leave lads one on one in a defensive setup, because they back the defenders 1v1. And then you flip that and they go into the attack. They're very drilled. They know where they're meant to be in their attacks. They know what they're doing. They know their setup. They know their position. They get into those positions and they isolate lads, wherever they need to isolate lads. And they're happy to hold on to a ball for a minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes until they get what they want to get. So they're very controlled in that. So they haven't lost that from the old game. They've managed to keep a hold of that, and I think that's been very important for them.
As we mentioned there with uh, Shamrock Gales, obviously you're thinking initially in attack straight away. David Quinn, Lee Duignan, two key matchups this weekend.
Yeah, and Shane Dygan got 2-3 from play in the county final as well. So like they're all going to need minding. But again, I think Moycullen are well set up to go and take on players 1v1. Like I don't think like they have enough lads that'll be able to man mark a team with two or three outstanding forwards. So I think that's going to be I think that's going to be really good battles there, two or three really good battles. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to the middle third and who's going to get the upper hand in the middle third, because I think if Mike Cullen can get the upper hand there, I think they have the forwards to do an awful lot of damage.
Yeah, it's a thing for Shamrock Gales, isn't it? We've obviously talked about Desi, but if you put, I suppose, all your focus on Desi, Niall Walsh would probably end up getting that space then.
Yeah, and I think you look at Coolera, Coolera are very heavily dependent on Niall Murphy. So I think he would have scored all 8 points of Coolera Strands Hill eight in the replay. Um, if you take Desi out of it, Niall Walsh is going to come to the fore. If you take Niall Walsh out of it, Peter Cook is going to kick 4 or 5 2 pointers. You're going to get scores from Fikra and Fionn McDonagh as well, and you're always going to get something from Johnny Maloney. So Moycullen have an awful lot of scoring threats all around the place that Shamrock Gales probably haven't had to deal with up to this point. So if Shamrock Gales can, tighten that up, and battle hard in the middle third, it's all going to come down to forwards, on either side.
Do you think Mike Cullen can get the job done this weekend?
Yeah, yeah, I'd back my Cullen to get over the line, definitely.
It's the thing, isn't it? It sets them up really nice, and if this weekend they get the win, obviously Leitrim Gales to go. But even from the people for Mike Cullen, like it's a special time of year, isn't it, when these clubs get going and everything that comes with it now with the provincial club championships.
It's a really special time. I remember when we won the Sligo Championship up in Strand in 21, I think it was. That first week you go back training, there's a different buzz, to any other week of the year. Um, the shoulders really go back in lads, and the shackles come off, and really enjoyable kind of a time. And for a club, it's hugely enjoyable as well because, like as I say, if you're playing at this time of the year, you're either doing something really well or really poorly. You're either in good knockout championship or you're in relegation. So if you're on the right side of it, it's a great time of the year.
Just before we move on to Caltra, then James, they're obviously in action as well at the weekend. This year overall, the quality in the Galway Senior Football Championship, were you impressed with it? But it's hard not to think that Curvin, Salthill Knocknacarra, Tombstairs and Mike Cullen are maybe distancing themselves from the rest of the clubs as the big four.
I think you look black and white over the last 2 years. You've had the same four in the semi-finals. So there is a gap there. You can't argue that there's not. You know, um, I still think the standard is very high. I think you have teams now that are starting to close the gap. So the likes of Dunmore there I really think they're going to start closing the gap even more and more, and it really wouldn't surprise me if we see them break into a top four in the next year or two. St James has had a fantastic year this year with obviously their additions that they had. Um, Oughterard are pushing on as well. So I think, okay, there's a gap, but I don't think it's as big a gap as maybe was there in previous years, where, maybe there's two or three teams running away with it in previous years. Now I think there's more teams that can actually go and win a county championship. And I think in the next couple of years, there'll be more teams again that can go and push into a top four.
Yeah, I think probably where James is maybe getting lost from that is when people look at the scoreline against G, but probably did flatter in one sense when you consider all those, I suppose, scores coming at the end. I definitely think they made real progress this year, in fairness to them.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think that, like, they were, when we were watching back tape on them, like you would be worried because they are a very good team. They have very good players all around the place. Like defensively, they're very solid with the likes of Jack Nolan and with Owen Finnerty. Up top, they were very dangerous with Jack Nolan. Dale Masterson was chipping in with scores. You had McCooey up there, and Jonah Culligan had a fantastic year for them as well. So then that's not even talking about Paul Conroy, who's been one of the best club footballers over the last 10 years. So like the scoreline definitely flattered, but again, I suppose that comes back to my point on momentum in the game, and we were lucky that we probably got on top in the middle third for that 15-minute period that we got the scores. and that was the key. But definitely the scoreline flattered for sure.
If we look at Caltra then, it's obviously a big difference for Caltra when you consider this is something new now for them. They've obviously heard past stories about the previous Caltra teams a good few years ago, but there's more of a challenge for Caltra when you compare it to Moycullen now this weekend.
Yeah, and I think playing Kilmina as well is an extra challenge to them. Obviously, Kilmina, won intermediate in 23 in Mayo, and they would have played Monivea in a Connacht semi final. So they've been out. They've won their county titles. They've been out. They've gone on. They've pushed on and won things. They've played their senior football. They've come back down. They've regrouped and they're going again. So Kilmina won't just be happy with a county title. Um, I think for Caltra, like they're a few years knocking on the door. I think I would have been on here last year tipping Caltra heavily to win the championship last year, and I think they're probably better. They were probably better prepared and better suited to go up to senior football this year, purely from an age profile and a experience point of view. Um, but getting yourself back up for a provincial championship match is huge when you finally get to the top of the mountain. But that'll be a big challenge now for Gabriel Naughton and Niall Coyne and the boys there to get them right.
It's the thing, isn't it? They've had a couple of injuries and they've even been through a tough county final too. And I know there was a couple of probably niggles that they've picked up, just with the way things played out there. So that that is sort of a challenge. And you look obviously a player like Sean Kane, they're missing coming into this here as well.
Yeah, and Sean's a big loss, huge loss for them. But I suppose like you're looking at, we're talking about teams that have forwards that are hard to mark, and Caltra have that. Like Alan Naughton finished with 350 in championship this year, finished with 345 in the 24 championship. Like he's a free scoring forward. You have Keelan Murray there, finished with 222 this year. So like they have scores, and then you have the likes of an Ono Kelly and Mikey Mulryan who are really leading as well. So they spread although they have maybe two or three heavy scores, they spread the load well from a game point of view with a few exceptional leaders on the field. But I think if anybody's in a good place to man mark forwards, it's going to be Kilmina. Like they had to deal with Moy Davitt's forward line there in county final and whatever semi final or whatever they played them the previous year or previous 2 years. Like Davis would be regarded as having a top forward line that's probably a senior forward line. But like Kilmina were able to deal with that and get over the line. So if anybody's going to have a little bit of confidence in their back line, it's going to be Kilmina going into this game.
It's the thing there, culture, isn't it? Like they can take huge confidence even from the county final. Like a player like Robbie Green, who probably came under the radar, got the goal in the county final, did a man-marking job on Finian O'Lee as well.
Yeah, Calfer are really developing good depth, which they probably didn't have last year. So I think for them, bringing in these lads that are going in under the radar, adding them to the lads that we know of, the Alan Nauchtons, the Mikey Mullerines, and the Ono Callies, they're developing a really good team. And look, like Mike Cullen, they know what they're doing. Like they're very well coached there by Niall Coyne. You can see it in them in kick outs and their attacking play and their defensive play. They're very confident in what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and I think that's going to be huge for them going into a provincial. Can they stick to the script? Can they stick to their KPIs and their process, and put their best foot forward going into Kilmina?
It's sort of hard when I think of Kilmina, not to think of the famous interview, obviously, when you were involved yourselves against Kilmina a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's a hard one to forget. Unscathed. Hopefully now the Caltra boys won't be giving Kilmina any extra motivation going into Sunday.
Yeah, in fairness though, it's I think we've probably referenced it a few times now, but Kilmina haven't experienced the junior and intermediate club championship. They know what this feeling's like. It is a bit of an advantage to them, but at the same time, then Caltra getting to go back to Tuam where they've won the intermediate championship this year is big also.
Huge, huge, and I think that'll give them a little bit of confidence. But like Calfer are going to have their homework done. Like they have a lot of good lads in the background there preparing for Kilmina, like Shane Mokler. I'm sure he's not sleeping. I say he's watching tape after tape after tape. Getting ready for these boys, and like they'll have lads planned for Jack Carney and the likes of their top scorers, and the likes of Aquila Callaghan coming in off the bench. They're going to be prepared for the likes of him. He would have been huge for them in 23. Obviously, had his injury troubles, but like Calter are going to be prepared for every eventuality and every player that's going to be touching grass in Tuam Stadium on Sunday.
Who do you think will pick up Jack Kearney?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Will they go with a tag and will they go and tag him, or will they, you know, allow a kind of a system to deal with him? It's hard to know. But I think the provincial championship is a great, is a great place to try new things, or try something that hasn't been seen before. And try and catch a team on the hop. So I think if they go after Jack Carney, I think it'll give them a massive foothold in the middle of the field, and really put Kilmeen on the back foot.
Yeah, I wonder could it be Robbie Green maybe after the final? His confidence could be there obviously because in fairness you wouldn't want Mikey Mulryan to pick him up because he gives him such a threat going forward. But James, in fairness, was in his leap for that Caltra goal, Mikey Mulryan. I think it's one of the moments of the championships across all the greats.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Like Mikey's a sensational athlete. A sensational. I was lucky to have coached him at under 15, under 16 development squad, and to see what he was doing at that age, and to see him bring that into adult football and performing at the biggest stage, like getting man of the match in the county final at such a young age is unbelievable. From a Galway point of view, it's seriously exciting to see another young lad like that. Like he's going to have a massive year with Galway under 20s this year, and it won't be long before we see him in a Galway senior jersey, I'm sure.
Just finally on Caltra, it's obviously a big opportunity for them. You would hope here now that they go for this because the one thing you would say when teams get into these provincial club championships, it doesn't come around all that often for clubs.
No, and to be honest, I don't think it's going to come for Caltra again for a few years, because I don't see them coming back down to intermediate. I think they're very well set up to go up to senior and compete and stay up there and push on the other side. So I'd love for them, and I'd love for Moycullen, I'd love for Carney Cashel, and the junior to really go at the provincials. Because I think it's great for Galway football if we have teams pushing on at the latter stages of provincials and the latter stages of All Ireland club competitions. I think it raises the standards across the board. So the more teams that we have going into provincials, throwing the shackles off and going at it is going to be the best thing for us going forward.
Carney Castle there you mentioned they lose to Clare Galway, so they will represent Galway in the junior championship, but they'll be a junior team next year. Clare Galway's second team going up to intermediate. It's fairly heartbreaking, isn't it?
It's tough. It's a tough situation to be in, and like Carnacastle battled so hard to beat Williamstown in that final in Pearse Stadium before that, and then to go from and then not to get promoted is tough. To dust yourself off then and go into a provincial competition is, you know it's not often it has to be done. But I think again they're well placed to go and push on. The likes of Sean O'Curry there has been like a mainstay for them over the last, Jesus, God knows how many years, and he's running around the place playing 80 minutes of football and leading the team. And like some Matthew Nee, who was playing Sigerson down MTU Kerry there last year, like they're well set up to go and push on. So I think if they can get their heads right and say to themselves, look, there's provincial silverware here if we want it. let's go after it. They could have a very good provincial championship.
On the opposite side, it's big for Claregalway though, isn't it? And I wasn't at it now, but I was only watching back the highlights that Stream Sport put up, and there's some very exciting young Claregalway footballers coming that I think probably were on the junior team this year that could potentially even see maybe playing senior football next year.
Yeah, for any club, if you can get two teams at the highest grades, it's huge for the club. Huge. It's huge for development because it's an awful lot better for those young lads to be playing intermediate football than playing junior football. And you see Curfin have had it for years, and you can see the benefit that's had for them. And like we're going to see it in the next few years, where the likes of Killian Joyce and those lads who have been playing intermediate football will be pushing on to a senior team and leading the seniors. So for Clare Galway to be now looking at lads playing intermediate football as opposed to junior football is only going to be better for their senior team. Like it's going to drive the standards all the way up. Um, and I think if they can stay up next year, it'll be huge for them going forward. That's going to be obviously going to be the key for them.
In one sense, it's nearly easier to keep players around now.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Look, the higher standard that you're playing and training, and the more likely you are to keep a hold of lads, and for lads to see, look at, geez, if I perform at intermediate level here now, if I do well in this group stage for the intermediate, I might get pulled into a senior team or get senior game time in a senior quarter final or prelim quarter final. So I think you're right. Like I think it's going to be a massive carrot for those young lads who would have won an awful lot at Fela and under 16 minor level or whatever it is, coming into an intermediate team now. I think it's going to be a clear platform for them to go and push on and play a bit of senior football.
Yeah, it's a big achievement in fairness. So as mentioned there, Claregalway's second team will be an intermediate team. Castle remain in junior. Um, Up the road from Claregalway, Ardmore Mary. I'd say this cabinet is they're running out of room where to put all these trophies over the last 2 years. An incredible achievement for them to win back-to-back Connacht minor titles.
Yeah, like they're really starting to dominate underage football in Galway now. Like you look at their under 19s this year, like they were exceptional as well. They're and then they're going and doing it on the hurling side of things as well. It's unbelievable. Like obviously, look at they have very good structures within the club. They've great vision within the club. They have great plans within the club, and like they're not going to be happy with just winning underage titles. They're going to want to go on and push on and start winning intermediate and pushing on, seeing where they can go. Like you look at their intermediate team this year, they're very, very young. An awful lot of them would have been under 19, and like although they were in a relegation battle this year, I think they're going to be pushing again next year at intermediate. And then you're adding those under 17s who are winning into a team that's pushing at intermediate level, and they can really push on. But I think the key for them is going to be, can they keep a hold of those lads as they push on and hit 23 and 24, and can they get a meaningful training load and training period into them and playing period at a high level to then go and push on.
Particularly too, isn't it? You're bringing young lads in who have no experience of losing.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, and sometimes you can see young lads coming into a panel with a load of experienced heads, and they start bringing them through, and you might have to only blood one or two or three. And I think Armore had to blood an awful lot over the last few years, and it's tough, but it'll stand to those young lads going forward, and they'll be pushing on, and hopefully we can see more and more lads getting into the Galway jersey as well, because that'll be a sign that they're definitely doing things right.
Yeah, and in fairness, it's probably a lesson too to a lot of Galway clubs what they've done over the last 5 years has been it's extraordinary, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't just say, "Oh, there's numbers, numbers, numbers." At the end of the day, you can have
That's
all the
nearly
numbers you
harder though,
want.
isn't it?
It is, because it brings us its own challenges, and like if you don't have the right structures in place, the right vision in place, it doesn't matter what numbers you have, you're not going to do anything. So the hat has to be taken off for the lads more and more for what they're doing, and hopefully it's driving on the standards around the county at underage level for teams wanting to go and catch them.
James, you mentioned early on the show that you're obviously involved with the University of Galway Sigerson Cup team again this year. How's that experience? Anyone I talk to that is involved in Sigerson just seems to, I suppose, love being involved in it.
Yes, great experience, brilliant, really, really enjoyable. It's a different kind of a football to club football or county football. It's a very high standard. You're probably looking just below inter-county standard, really. Um, like you're dealing with senior inter-county players, you're dealing with the top club players around the place. Um, and then it's probably a freer game of football where lads are probably encouraged to try things that you might get in trouble for at championship level with the club. But no, it's great. There's an awful lot of freedom. It's definitely a higher pace because you're dealing with these young lads who are 19, 20, 21, 22, and so on, who are athletically in an exceptional place. So you can play a different kind of football as well, and a kind of a harder running or a higher tackling game. So it's really, really enjoyable. And it's going well so far. So hopefully now it can keep going.
I'm probably opening a can of worms now when I ask this question, but for you, do you feel it's the right place in the calendar at the minute? Because obviously now we're seeing pre-season competitions are coming back, so that's obviously, I imagine, not helping things. So where do you think they could fit it in? I know it is hard to fit it in at the same time, but it definitely feels like there should be a gap somewhere for this competition.
Yeah, it's look, it's very tough. It's very tough because at the end of the day, every single one of these young lads who are in county squads, they've dreamt of playing county football. So if you have county managers saying to them, geez, you need to be in the gym here now on a Monday night instead of being out in the muck and dangan, they're probably going naturally they're going to lean that way because that's what they're dreaming of. I think the Sigerson competition is an exceptional competition. I think it's somewhere where players can thrive and players can grow, and they're playing a higher standard of football. I think county managers need to look at it and say this is a real positive for these young fellas. Now, where we fit it in then is the question because we're going to be playing Sigerson football at the beginning of January when the FBD is kicking off, and county managers are going to want to be looking at these lads that we have, and every college in the country is going to have the same issue. Um, do you play it pre-Christmas? Then you're running the risk of losing your club players who are in provincial and All Ireland competitions. Are you going to have the
Also, you
pitches to
also
do
have
that?
exams as
You
well
have
with
exams, so
colleges.
it's very hard to fit it in. I really don't know
Mm.
where you're going to fit it in. I I think I think lads want to play Sigerson football. They want to play county football. Um, it's probably it's probably up to county managers to decide whether they're going to be pulling them or not pulling them, and what kind of pressure they're going to put on them. But I really think any county manager should be looking at it and saying, it's a fantastic opportunity to get lads playing a really high standard of football before they come back into a county squad.
Yeah, it seems to be a tricky one, obviously, where you do fit it in. Was it better last year when there was just challenge matches, or was it still nearly what it is now this year?
No, it was tough last year as well.
Yeah.
Look, we had a couple of lads that we didn't see until the first round championship. We had a couple of lads that we didn't see until the second round championship. Because they were off playing challenge games or they were off training weekends or whatever. So, obviously very tough on those lads coming back in and being thrown into a team. And it's definitely a hurdle that needs to be. We need to figure out how to navigate it as best we can for the players, really, because they're the ones that are losing out if they're being pulled and dragged.
Bit of Galway involvement this year again, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'd have strong Go involvement really. A lot of lads in with the Go development squad, and the few lads who would have been in with the seniors like Killian O'Curry and so on. So look at it as I always think the more intercounty Galway footballers you can have in your Galway colleges, whether it be University of Galway or ATU Galway, the better it is for Galway as a whole.
Great stuff. Well, that's all we do time for on today's show. Thanks to James for coming on.
Thanks, William Paul.